my first ever race in Mercedes. I've still got the scars on my hips. I jumped in the car on a Wednesday to see if I fit. I did not.
You can't make any excuses. It's your moment, though.
Yeah, I'm driving. Like, no matter what, I am driving this weekend.
As an athlete, I'm really into this. When do you know you're in the flow state? What does it feel like?
That is arguably the most amount of adrenaline I've ever felt in my life.
Really?
Probably my greatest ever performance, I would say, was that lap.
Lucky us, because we are here with George Russell, my man. You are silky smooth on the track. Timing, precision, you deliver, man. And as a fan, love watching you. And I know you like your numbers.
I like my numbers.
You like your numbers.
I do like my numbers.
I have a surprise for you.
I can see some numbers here.
You see these numbers?
I recognize a few. I recognize a couple.
They're your story.
They're my story.
But you're gonna make this story for us.
Okay, I like it.
You like this?
I like it.
Now, don't think too hard. First number.
But the first number is 63.
Okay.
Yeah. We
63.
thought you might go for that.
Like that.
That is my number. Actually, that's a lie. That's my brother's number.
Oh.
My older brother, Benji, who is 11 years older than me. He started go-karting at the age of 11 at his local karting centre. And for whatever reason, this centre gave the fastest driver the number 63. So when he started karting a little bit more professionally, not just a hobby, that was the number he took forward, and that was our family number ever since.
Did you compete with your brother?
I didn't, no. He always likes to claim he was the faster Russell. So when I was at Williams, my previous team, I said, right, I'm going to bring him to the simulator because he told my previous boss, you signed the wrong Russell, as a bit of a joke. So she was like, all right, come to the simulator and we'll see. So he had a good day. He was about 5 seconds off the pace.
5 seconds?
5 seconds, but he hasn't been doing it for a while, but he was very good in his day. He won a world championship.
Oh, right.
Oh, wow.
A karting world championship. So he was very good. He was my hero as a kid.
Do you talk to him after races?
We speak every day, really. We've got a very close relationship in our family, and my brother and my sister's 12 years older, my brother's 11 years older, but they have supported me and this dream we've been on since the very beginning. And I don't think I probably appreciated it enough when I was between the ages of 10 to 16, when they were in their early mid-20s, because I think it's very easy for a sibling to feel that the youngest one is getting the love and the treatment from their parents. And even though that was kind of the case, my brother and my sister believed in me so much and supported my dream so much that they didn't mind that my parents were with me at the weekend, and they were putting everything they owned financially on the table for this dream because they believed it as well. So I have to say a huge thanks to them, because they could have made it more challenging for us as a family.
You said that your brother was your hero growing up. What was it like then when you made it into Formula One?
Yeah, that was a very special moment for all of us, because we had been chasing that dream for so long. And again, when I was younger, it felt so easy and so simple. I was naive, I was arrogant, and I just thought I'll win races and I'll get to Formula One. Now I'm in Formula One, you realize how the stars have to align. Because in another sport, if we take football as an example, you come through the academy, you go into the youth squad, and you may excel at the age of 16, 17, 20, 21, but when you get your opportunity, or when your time comes, you will break through into the start at 11, and then you'll become the top player or not. In Formula One, to enter the sport, a great driver has to leave the sport.
Yeah.
You can't just be there waiting in the wings and you'll be substituted on at half time and given your shot to see how you get on, or you got the chance on the training field. We have no training field. We're only allowed 2 test days per year. The simulator, which is not really a real race car, is our training.
Yeah.
So for a youngster to come in, it is so difficult to prove yourself.
When you look at that number, right, you try to draw and get motivation from anywhere.
Yeah.
Do you look at it sometimes and think about representing your family? Do you have to tap in to your younger self, that arrogance?
You do sometimes, because our life is so fast-paced. We go from practice to practice, circuit to circuit, country to country. Sometimes I forget the dream that I'm living. You know, as this 10-year-old, when I first ran with the number 63, dreaming of being a Formula One driver, or even when I was 18 years old and I was in Formula 2 waiting to become a Formula One driver. Where I am now is something I could only have dreamt of. And I do think it's important to remind yourself of that, just to get a bit of, just to keep your feet on the ground. But also, I think it's also important not to get too caught up in the dream, because even though it is a dream, I'm still dreaming of achieving more. So I can't be sat here today being so thankful and grateful and I'm living my dream and this is amazing and I've completed everything. I haven't completed anything yet. You know, this just feels the beginning for me, and I just need to keep that mentality of still pushing forward.
You said you haven't completed anything yet. Is that how you actually feel?
It is, and that is a...
Wow.
I kind of feel guilty of saying that, because, as I said, thinking back to my younger self, I would have dreamt to have been in this position. And this position, I am, you know, living this dream, but I feel like I always want more, and that's what always motivates me. And when I look at the successful people I have around me, or the likes of Lewis, Toto, other great athletes in other sports or business people, when they've achieved a goal, they want to achieve the next.
You raise the bar.
And you raise the bar and you want to keep pushing forward. So, of course, I'm incredibly grateful and so happy to be where I am today, but I want to fight for this World Championship. I want to win a World Championship. Then I want to win another one. And it just is, it's sort of never ending. And my ultimate goal is to become a Formula One World Champion. I really hope I can achieve that, and I'm working every day to achieve that. If I achieve it, it wouldn't be like my feet are up on the sofa now and that's job done, because then you want to achieve it again. So that's just my mentality that has helped me get to the position I am today and is going to help keep driving me forward.
The greats sound like that. They talk like that. They have that mentality. They're never satisfied. And your younger self would be looking at you saying that right now and say, yeah, keep pushing.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly the mentality you need to have.
For sure. For sure. You can never, if you're standing still, everyone's moving forward past you. And, you know, even when you get to the top, you've got to keep on striving forward, because you've got somebody below who's, you know, trying to push even further. And I think this is the most challenging thing in sport, when a team is successful, to continue to innovate the mentality and to keep on pushing forward, because when you're on top for a reason. That's because you've done everything right. But you can't just stand there and stand still, because, as I said, the people behind you are going to keep pushing you forward. So having that confidence and ability to say, I need to keep on changing the game, changing my approach, keep on evolving, not dislocating everything and starting from a blank sheet of paper, but it's just continuously evolving. And you've got to be so brave to make those decisions, especially when you're winning.
Did you feel a shift in that when you came from Williams to Mercedes? Obviously, you were part of the Mercedes Junior program, but when you were in Formula One in Williams and then moving to a team like Mercedes that had all these years of championships and were really operating at the absolute top level, did you feel in yourself, oh, whoa, I need to even step it up a little bit more here?
For sure. I mean, when I came to Mercedes, just seeing the way every single department operated, I was like, I need to raise my game. And then people bounced off one another. And when you accept a suboptimal standard in any single area, that also goes through the whole team around you. Like, oh, well, if he's not doing his best in that area, then I can afford not to do my best in this area. And then suddenly, before you know it, you've got a couple of hundred people or 1,000 people not operating at their best.
Well, this is something that Toto talks about a lot. He talks about the attention to detail in the toilets at the races.
Yeah,
Sorry to
yeah.
bring it up, right? But he always says even the toilets at the race have to be immaculate because we're maintaining a standard on every level. And I think that is something that you really feel when you come to Mercedes in comparison to some other teams. Perhaps it is like
Good
everyone is like...
They are good.
They are good
the toilets are exceptional.
They're the best toilets.
Great hand cream as well, guys. Absolutely fantastic.
Good hand cream.
Hand cream's great.
good stuff.
But you do feel it in literally every area that you step into within the team.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember when I was at Williams, when I started to get a bit of confidence and was trying to help lead the team forward, something that actually really annoyed me at the factory, and we made a change, was how slow the coffee machine was. And the reason why it annoyed me is because all of the team members and the great engineers and designers, at their lunch break, they go and queue for the coffee, and suddenly there's a big long queue, and it brought an element of frustration to everyone just standing there waiting, seeing the time ticking by on their lunch break. And for me, that was just like a mentality of, the coffee machine is suboptimal and it's going to take me an extra 3 minutes standing here, but that's fine, it doesn't really matter. That isn't the mentality you need. You want everything to be absolutely incredible, and then that gives you the inspiration. Like, oh wow, that coffee machine comes super quick, and the coffee is incredible, and everything here is amazing, and where I work is great. The people around me are great. Oh geez, I need to step it up, and I feel like that really goes through the whole factory, and that's why Toto is such a great leader.
Is your attention to detail one of your superpowers? Because I'm hearing it.
Yeah, this is what I said to you before. I said George's attention to detail.
Fantastic.
Watch out for it.
I think it can go both ways. It can be a superpower, but it can also really impact you. And just recently as well, I came out saying I've been too focused on the data, and I want to go back to driving more instinctively. And finding that balance of how do I continuously improve, and looking at all of this detail and the data, but still drive instinctively as I've done my whole life, is a real challenge. And I'm looking to improve in every single area, but sometimes if you look to improve that last 1%, it can affect the 99% that you don't want to adjust. So trying to improve the small area without it impacting everything else, that is the real challenge.
And how do you also deal with all of that, with all of the other noise around the sport, right? Because Formula One has absolutely exploded. You'll know back in the States, it's huge now. Huge. I'm there most weekends. I see what it's like when you step anywhere, George. It's like,
yeah.
How do you deal with that whilst you're also trying to manage this internal thing of data versus instinct, plus managing all the media days and all of the fan engagement and, coming across well?
I mean, firstly, it's awesome to see where Formula One is now, because we raced during the pandemic in 2020, and we had no fans at the races, and you then suddenly realize how soulless it all felt. And it kind of reminds you that the fans are the center of every sport, and they make it what it is or what it isn't. So when I see, the crowds of people, when it can be overwhelming sometimes, I always remind myself, how it was, 6 years ago, without any of the fans there, and we're very fortunate that people are loving the sport that I love. But as you say, managing your energy across a season is really key, because I've realized you can't do everything. And that was also, when I was younger, I wanted to spend the most amount of time in the engineering truck, looking at the analysis, the most amount of days on the simulator, the longest hours in the gym, getting to the races earliest to acclimatize as well as possible. And then I realized I had no days. So I think it's important to pinpoint what is going to bring me the most amount of performance, and just finding that right balance. Sometimes for me on a Saturday night at a race weekend, leaving the track and going back and having a nice evening meal and an early night brings me more performance than spending an extra hour looking through the data. But on other occasions, it's the opposite. So you've just got to find out in the moment what it is going to bring you the biggest impact.
My last question about this number is, your connection to it when you were young. You're looking at that young George and sitting here now. I mean, I'm learning a lot listening to you. What wisdom and guidance about not only yourself, but being a leader would you tell that young 63?
Well, something I've learned on my journey, and I always like to say to younger people who ask me for advice, is not being afraid to make mistakes. I hated making mistakes when I was younger because I felt like I was letting down my family and everybody who supported me. And sometimes I prefer to drive slightly below my limit and below my maximum potential and not make any mistakes rather than pushing myself and knowing where the ceiling was. But I learned over time that when I pushed myself and I made those mistakes, it was so difficult in the moment, but I became a better driver and a better human because of it. So in life, you need to make these mistakes to grow and to progress.
Man, those are wise words. I'm going to listen to that and take that away myself. I mean, this is what's up, man. All right, George. You started us off. Superb, man. Real leadership. I like it.
Appreciate it.
Take us to the next number. Tell us a story.
Where do you want to go?
I recognize the 0.026.
Would you like that?
I would take that.
Okay.
Let's do it.
It's like a good game show, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, great game show.
I'll just take that. Look at that right there next to you.
So that was the time I was off pole position in my first ever race for Mercedes back in 2020. So this was an unexpected call-up. F1 fans will probably remember the day when unfortunately Lewis Hamilton caught COVID, and he was feeling okay but wasn't allowed to race because of the rules, and I jumped in, which was a huge opportunity for me. I got the phone call on the Tuesday. I jumped in the car on the Wednesday to see if I fit, and I did not. It was, Lewis and Valtteri Bottas, who were the two drivers at the time, are quite a bit shorter than me. I've also got quite big flipper feet as well, which is quite tight in a Formula One car. And I was scrunched in, bent over. My shoes didn't fit.
I was about to say, I remember the shoes.
The shoes, yeah. So I'm a size 45, like 11 and a half. And I had to wear size 43 shoes to fit in. But they were asking me, is it okay? I was like, yeah, totally fine. No issues. Like, I'm driving. Like, no matter what, I am driving this weekend. First time in the car and, qualified on the front row. That much off pole position, which was very annoying, but still it was a great first outing.
That smile you just gave when you pointed there, is that the emotion it brings you when you look at it? It was like you just...
No, I remember the weekend more because it was a weekend of special memories. I was racing with Williams at the time, and we were the worst team on the grid in 2020. And as a driver, you always believe in yourself. You believe that if I have the fastest car, I will win. And I just need to be given that opportunity. Then when you're given that opportunity, it's like, damn, now it's time. I need to deliver on those words. And actually, can I do it? I believe I can, but until you're given that opportunity, you don't know. And qualifying, I wanted to be on pole position. I just missed out behind my teammate, but we went on to lead the race. We were comfortably leading by about 8 seconds at one point, and then we had a huge mix-up at the pit stop. So there was a safety car. It was actually the driver who replaced me at Williams who crashed to cause the safety car, ironically.
Poetic.
And as I came into the pits, unfortunately, the team fitted my teammate's tyres on my car, which is not allowed.
Whoa.
So I then had to come back round the lap, pit again, and put my tyres on my car, which dropped me down to, I think I was in about 7th place at the time. We came back through to second. We were catching the leader, who was Perez, and then I got a puncture. probably from a piece of debris from that initial crash as well. So it wasn't the fairy tale ending it could have been. However, it was a super special weekend, and I think I proved to myself and everybody else that
I can remember that. I remember everyone who was watching F1 that was obviously rooting for you. When a young driver gets an opportunity like that, everyone's like, yes, go, this could be a turning point. That race and the images after of you sitting on the side, just looking utterly exhausted, but just almost dejected, even though it had been such a strong showing for you.
There was too many different emotions I was feeling. There was, because this was my first shot at, I mean, I hadn't even scored a point until this point in Formula One in my whole career, because the team, as I said, we were so slow at Williams. I was on course to win the race, on course to re-win the race, and then it all got taken away. It was really tough, but I also knew what I showed in that race was enough that would probably seal my future with this team for the following. Well, it wasn't for the following year, it was for the year after, and ultimately it did.
I hear a person, an athlete, who had to overcome adversity, had to face challenges, and had to move past them. I mean, imagine you're getting in a car and you don't fit.
It's like,
but you can't make any excuses. It's your moment, though.
Yeah, for sure, it is. I've still got the scars on my hips. Yeah.
My goodness. And then the issues with the car. What are you telling yourself when this is happening? Like, take us inside
in the cockpit.
In this brain, this wonderful brain, by the way.
Let us know. I was talking a lot, I remember, on the radio. I used to speak a lot back then on the radio. I've learned to dim it down a bit now, but I just couldn't really comprehend how this series of events had unfolded.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, there was one, we made this mistake at the pit stop. Okay, this is not good at all, but we've recovered it. And we're on course to at least finish second, but probably still win the race. And then when we get a puncture, I'd never had a puncture in my whole career until this point. And I'm thinking now, I'm not sure I've done 150 plus races now. I'm not sure I've ever had a puncture since as well. And, you know, I just couldn't really comprehend how those events unfolded. So yeah, my emotions were just all over the place.
Did you, at that moment, I know it's a difficult ask right here, but did you kind of lose faith a little bit in?
No, to be honest, because
teammates.
I knew my time would come. And, you know, I sit here now 6 years later. If I'd won that race, or the race panned out the way it did, it hasn't changed my life. You know, maybe if my career finished the year after because of an injury or something, and I never won a Formula One race, that would really affect me for the rest of my life. But, you know, going back to the earlier conversation about achieving your dreams, for me, it's like climbing a ladder. And, you know, you go through the ranks of go-karting, you want to win your first race, it's the first step on the ladder. You want to win your first championship, second step. You want to progress into the bigger category with the big boys, you know, that's the next step. And then race cars, Formula 4, Formula first win in race cars, first championship, next step. Formula 3, championship win. Formula 2, championship win. First test in Formula 1, first race in Formula 1, next step. And then it's like first points, first pole, first podium, first victory. You want to do those steps. And at that moment, I hadn't achieved a pole, I hadn't achieved points, I hadn't achieved a podium or a win. And it was all on the cards in that one weekend, out of nowhere.
Jeez.
Out of nowhere.
And you didn't fit.
And I didn't fit. So as I said, if my career had stopped on that Sunday night thereafter, it probably would have affected me until this day. However, I've since done all of those steps, and the race, you know, there was another race taken away from me 2 years ago in Belgium.
Yeah.
I've got 6 official race wins to my name. Maybe it should have been 7. Maybe with this it could have been 8, 6 or 8 or 2 or 12. It doesn't really, because my next step is to win a world championship.
That's really interesting, that mindset, but I feel like hindsight allows you to have that
Sure.
more measured approach, right? In the moment, of course, it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
When you now have situations like that, are you able to mirror that in the moment, or do you still have to let yourself feel the emotion and then take a step back? Because, come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question because, I've kind of faced a similar situation this year. Thinking back to Canada leading the race and the engine breaking, that was a very similar feeling. And the emotions are very different now because I probably recognize more that everybody is doing their best to achieve victory. And the truth is, it is nobody's fault. And maybe in the past, I wouldn't have blamed anybody, but you're just blaming the situation. And it's difficult to accept. But in sport, these things happen in every single sport to every single athlete at some point in their career. And it's not it's how you bounce back from those moments.
Yeah.
We're lucky that we are not Olympians, that we have our big moment once every 4 years. We have 24 opportunities per year. And if you have a really tough race, potentially outside of your control, you have to bounce back and perform at the very next one because, you're judged on a championship. 24 races, you're not judged on one.
Spectacular. I want you to put yourself back on that ladder for me because I love that. I was visualizing you on this ladder. Okay, you're on that ladder right now. I mean, you've climbed up. You're high. Where are your eyes? And are they always looking up? Do you ever look down? And that's a long fall of everything you've done. Like, are you just one of these people that always looks up?
I'm always looking at the next step because I feel the ladder is like infinite. There is no, it's not like you're climbing Mount Everest and there's a clear peak. I don't know where, and obviously I know where the top of the ladder should be, but it's, even as I said, going back to Lewis, the greatest driver of all time in Formula One, he is still climbing his ladder. He wants to achieve another championship and another victory and more success and more accomplishments. For me, it's about looking at that very next step because to get to the top, you've got to first do that one step.
Man, I like it. And we got more steps to follow with this story of yours, my friend.
I'm these two numbers now. I might need a clue because
Come on, which one do you want to do?
Well, the 0.04 I feel again is a time, but the 1.5.
You know what this one is.
Yes, it's just clicked now. We'll go with 1.5.
I was going to say, I think you'll remember this one.
1.5, yeah. It's clicked. It's clicked. And now it gives me more time to think about the other one.
Talk to us about 1.5. What do you think it is?
Is it 1.5 kilograms?
It is.
It's 1.5
It
kilograms.
is.
Okay.
And what was that 1.5 kilograms, George?
That was 1.5 kilograms under the weight limit that disqualified me from winning the race in Belgium 2024.
Yeah. And you just touched on that when we were just speaking about it. That's one of the wins that you could have had.
Yes.
Take us back to that moment because I remember leaving the circuit, everyone thinking,
1.5.
fantastic. George has just done amazing. Getting onto the coach to go to the airport, comes through disqualified.
Yes.
And it's not something we see regularly in our sport, by the way.
No.
This is something that is not common.
So this race was always destined to be a 2 pit stop race. So 2 pit stops through the race, that was the strategy that every single driver was on course to complete. During after my first pit stop, I was about 10 laps into my stint. And I was like, I feel good here. These tyres feel good and I think I can make it to the end of this race. We've only done 1 pit stop. And I went on the radio and I'm like, okay, let's consider the 1 stop. I'm feeling good. And I remember it was a 44 lap race. I was looking at the TV screen every single lap and I could see the gap to my teammate behind, who was Lewis. And I could see the rate he was catching me on his fresh tyres. after doing the pit stop, and I was thinking, I've done the maths, he's 10 seconds behind, there's 10 laps remaining, he's catching me at 1 second a lap, he's only going to catch me towards the end of this race if I can continue this pace. And the team were like, yeah, we're on course to be caught with 2 laps to go. So I was like, right, I can't make a single mistake here. I need to keep on pushing. And we crossed the finish line in first place, stood on the podium, lifted the trophy, and found out probably only about 20 minutes later that the car was 1.5 kilos underweight. The crazy thing about this 1.5 kilos, going quite technical now, is our team analyze every single race how much weight the car loses from the start of the race to the end of the race. For example, the fuel that we burn during the race has to be accounted for, the oil that is consumed, the weight that I as a driver lose in liquids through the race, the brakes, because you're braking on with the brake pads and the brake discs, the brakes are losing weight through the race. The floor is scraping along the ground, is losing weight through the race. The tires, because you're sort of burning the rubber, the tires are lighter at the end of the race than the start of the race. So we have to calculate all of these different items on the car, and my tires, because I'd only done 1 pit stop, I had much less rubber on my tires, came in around the 1 kilo lighter than my teammate's tires, because he had fresher tires on and had more rubber on his tires, and that was quite a factor into us being pushed over the edge. So, it's crazy, real fine margins that make or break.
He was chasing you at that moment, right?
He was chasing me, yeah.
So, competition's real.
Yes.
Risk and competition go hand in hand. Did you have the mindset like, yo, I'm about to do this. Like, I'm taking this chance. Like, let's roll with this. Because that seems to be how you go about your business.
I mean, I looked at the risk reward in the moment. I was in 4th place before the pit stop. And I thought, well, if I get this wrong, I could end up in 5th, 6th, or 7th. If I get this right, I can win the race. And in that moment, it was a clear, the reward outweighs the risk. And I'm willing to do it. Also, it was the last race before the summer break, and I wanted to end on a high. I was flying out to Mallorca that evening and seeing my sister and a couple of friends and Carmen, my girlfriend. So I was like, I want to end on a good one. But then, I just felt, you feel it sometimes. Like, when you feel at one with the race car, and it's a difficult feeling to describe, and everything just felt everything was happening subconsciously. Like, I wasn't even thinking, it was just happening, it was flowing. What also made it really nice is that there were no cars at all in front of me, and Belgium is a beautiful track, Spa, and with how the race panned out, there were no cars around me. Sometimes you're lapping cars and there's a bit of a mess, but I felt like I was on the racetrack by myself. And that also just felt like I got into this groove, and I knew it was possible. And I knew that as soon as I was caught, I just had to be fast out of the first corner, because that led onto this big long straight. So I knew that very first corner was the key to winning or losing that race, and I had to get it right 3 laps in a row. It doesn't sound like a lot, but going into that corner knowing I've got to attack here, I've got to nail the corner, one small mistake, one small lockup, I'm being passed. If I take it too easy and a bit too conservative, I'm also being passed. So you're just having to thread that needle of risk.
So I really, as an athlete, I'm really into this. When do you know you're in the flow state? How soon, when you get in that car in a race, because I know it's got to be different. When do you know, I know you can't explain it, but what does it feel like?
It feels like the car is on rails. So it feels like you're on a roller coaster and it's just going exactly where it's supposed to go. So when you're on a roller coaster, you're on the rails, so you know where you're going. when you're overdriving, as an example, it's really difficult to keep the race car on those rails. Maybe the rear steps out, maybe you have a small lockup, you have a bit of understeer, and just keeping it on those tracks is really challenging. When you're in the flow state, the car's on these tracks, it isn't moving, and everything is just happening so fast, but just, it almost feels easy. You know, it's just like, it is flowing, it's stuck. The car is stuck to the ground, it's on these tracks. And that's when you know you're really doing a good job.
You said that during that race, you felt like you were at one with the car, that you were in this flow state. It was just instinct.
Yes.
But obviously, it ended up not paying off because of this technical issue. Has that made you doubt when you are now in that flow state going forward? Do you and the team now think, hold on, it may be feeling really good, but let's just, or does it not even play into your mind now because it was a technical?
It was, because it was
almost like a freak.
Yeah, it was, you know, totally a technical issue here. And there were just a couple of factors that all led to accumulating to this 1.5 kilograms. You know, it's just crazy. You know, everything was just 200 grams here, 100 grams there, 300 grams here, just a little bit here and there, and it all just added up.
I just find it striking that both for the 1.5 and also for the 0.026, it is a culmination of all these freak things that happened.
Yeah, for sure.
That take something from you.
But this is racing, and you sometimes have it on the flip side.
Absolutely.
You know, you sometimes take advantage from these moments, and I've had that in the past where something unexpected has happened and it's played right into my hands. I've also had it when it's been taken away. Over the course of a season or over the course of a career, these things usually balance itself out.
Yeah.
When you're not in a flow state, how do you get back on track? Like, how do you lock back in? Is it techniques? Is it?
Well, this is the biggest challenge, because when you're not in the flow state, that mainly is because you're on the back foot. The pace isn't as strong as you would like. And to tell yourself to go faster, maybe I need to put in less effort and try less hard to get back into that flow state, doesn't sometimes comprehend in your brain. Because when things aren't going well, you want to try harder and you want to push even more. And the times when I've been in that flow state, or I've done, you know, the best pole laps of my career, or some of my wins, it's felt easy. The wins and the poles have felt easy. Some of the races finishing in 5th place have felt like a fight, and it's been a fight to achieve a 5th. And because I wasn't in the flow state, and I wasn't at one with the car, and I was in a battle. The times I've won, you're dancing with the car, and it just feels beautiful.
Which is more rewarding, looking back?
The most rewarding is when you're not in the flow state and you're fighting with the car, but you achieve
but you get it.
a pole position. It
must be nothing like that feeling.
That is, I had this season in Canada, in qualifying. I wasn't in the flow state. I wasn't at one with the car. I was really unhappy. I was fighting the whole session. And out of nowhere, I managed to nail the lap and get it onto pole position. That is arguably the most amount of adrenaline I've ever felt in my life.
Really?
Wow.
Just because it was just so unexpected.
Yeah, it was.
And it was such a battle and it was such a fight. The times, my last race I was on pole position, everything just flowed. And I had so much faith that I'm going to be on pole today. I can feel it. I'm just in such a good place with the car. And I didn't need to push that last 1% because I knew the 99% was more than enough to get me on pole. The lap in Canada, I went to 105%, knowing it may go wrong, but knowing it could go right. And on that occasion, it did.
Man, I'm telling you right now, you've flown with these numbers. That is it.
This is what it's about.
And we got the last one.
Right, this one I need a clue. Is it a time?
No.
Okay.
I don't think you'll guess this one, but it is a comparison.
A comparison?
This is the delta
between
the average qualifying position of yourself and Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, right,
in the 2022 season. And this is the second closest delta since you joined the sport in 2019. That's how close you and Lewis were. Your average qualifying position was 6.45, his was 6.41.
Okay. So 6.45, 6. Okay, wow.
Super close.
Yeah, you got me on the back foot though. You should have taken my 2024 results. All of these have been on the wrong side of goodness.
No, but hey, there's good stories out of them.
Okay.
So let's talk about it. Stepping into a team alongside Lewis Hamilton, we know that you looked up to him growing up. Just take us into that moment of when you first joined the team, lining up alongside him. I mean, even back to like the media days before we even got to see you guys together. What was that like?
It was a very surreal moment because I remember queuing up for his autograph when I was about 9 years old, and he was I think at that moment was leading the World Championship or fighting for his first one. And suddenly fast forwarding 13 years to be going head to head teammates with him, arguably off one of the strongest years of his whole career. This was another moment where I was like, I believe in myself, but now it's the time going up against the GOAT to see if I'm as good as I believe I am, and if I can go head to head with this guy. And yeah, we did.
Does that give you energy?
I got to be honest, the mentality I had was to not even think about who my teammate is. I went in and I felt that throughout my whole career, I've focused so much on myself when I put my helmet on, that this is the mentality that I want to continue with. And it didn't matter if I had the greatest driver of all time alongside me, or if it was a rookie, or if there was nobody there, that person next to me should not impact my performance. Because when my helmet's on, I'm in my car, and that is just external noise that can not really impact you positively or negatively. Well, it can't really impact you positively, it can only probably impact you negatively. So I had this mentality that I'm just going to get in and drive as I have done my whole career to this day, and not even think about the pressure of being, head to head with someone like Lewis.
Because in Formula One, your biggest competitor is your teammate, right? So I completely get what you're saying about it only impacting you negatively. But did you try to take positives from it by learning from him? Did you use it as an opportunity to study, given that he is, as you said,
For sure.
arguably the greatest?
I think what was clear for me throughout that year, straight away I was on his pace. And, I remember, finishing ahead of Lewis quite a few times at the beginning of that season. And that gave me a lot of confidence in myself. And I recognized we also have slightly different driving styles as well. My driving style was working. I was performing well. I was scoring good points for the team. I got my first podium for the team, and soon after the first pole position. So I had this mentality that I just need to trust in myself, recognizing that we're different people, different driving styles, and we needed different things from the car. But I learned a huge amount from Lewis in how he dealt with the team and his engineers, and how he was very much the leader of the team. He really picked everybody up through the tough moments. And that is so important when you have a team of 2,000 people. You need that leader to continue to motivate everybody.
Because everybody's watching you. Every facial expression you make, every gesture, all that pressure. Do you look at things he did successfully and obviously mimic them and make them your own, but you remember situations he was in
100%.
where he used that?
100%, because I think I wore my heart on my sleeve when I was younger, and you realize sometimes that has a certain impact to the media, also to your competitors, to your team members, and you begin to realize that you have to lead by example. If you come in after a tough session and you're down and slouching, you have no motivation, that goes through the whole team of people around. So you need to continue to push yourself and push the people around you to bring their A game, which is ultimately going to help yourself.
But how do you then process those emotions privately?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, throughout that season, I had a very strong year in 2022,
You did,
and yeah, as a team, we struggled, but me personally was probably one of my strongest years in Formula One. How I deal with these things privately, I mean, I've been speaking with a performance psychologist for the past 6 years now, and that's really helped me to deal with maybe some of the pressures, how to get the most out of myself going into a race weekend, how to deal with certain situations on track or leading into a session. So yeah, speaking with a professional in this regard sort of helped me a lot.
What kind of conversations do you have with yourself? Because you seem so kind, so personable, but how do you talk to yourself?
In the mirror.
We're getting into a therapy session right here.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I struggled with that as an athlete.
I mean, I have a really great group of people around me and a really good sort of support network that I never really feel alone in that moment. You know, having Carmen, my girlfriend, who's been with me for so long and supported me so much, helps me in those private moments to deal with whatever emotions I may be feeling after a good day or a bad day at the racetrack. I have my my performance coach, Alay, she's also been with me longer than Carmen actually, for about 9 years now. And then my race engineers and the whole team. Yeah, I never really find myself in that moment where I'm at one with my own thoughts, which for me is a good thing, because I think sometimes you can just be playing scenarios in your head or going over difficult moments, and it doesn't really positively impact the result.
As a leader now, what would you say your leadership style is?
My leadership style, wow.
I mean, you've learned from a lot of people.
Yeah.
You have a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience. You're analytical. You got great technique. Those are things that make great leaders.
Something I've learned is trying to empower the people who are experts in their own role. I think when I was younger, and I've seen it from other leaders, that we try and get into somebody else's area of expertise and tell them how to do it better. And I've come to learn, let's say, for example, with strategy. The strategists are the best group of people in this whole factory about strategy.
Yeah.
The car designer they are the best group of people in this whole factory for car design. Drivers, you know, it's Kimmy and I. You know, so we have to trust in each other that they do their job to the best of their ability, and I'll do my job to the best of our ability, and we'll work collaboratively, but I won't tell you how to do your job and you won't tell me how to do my job. But we work together in achieving the end goal, which is success and victory. But so often I've come across people who are trying to tell others how to do their job when they actually don't know much in that area at all.
Is that something that you've learned from Toto? Because I feel like that's something that he's spoken about a lot as well, empowering people in their positions.
For sure. No, I've learned a lot from him and his leadership style, and we are, between the drivers, you know, we are at the tip of the iceberg as such, getting the privilege of driving the race car, but we are a team of 2,000 people. And
so
we are chasing victory and championships, and you need every single person within every single department to be at their A game. And it's like a big jigsaw puzzle. Everything has to slot into place together, and you've just got to trust that the people, for example, who Toto hires are the right people for the job. I've got to trust in my group of engineers around me and work as hard as possible with those individuals and everyone in their own areas. If we all come together, that's when you can achieve this stuff.
You know what I trust? That you're about to bring it with your last number, and you are going to make this story shine.
All right.
We're ready.
Okay.
Leadership, trust, bring it.
Well, you guys asked me this morning, like, what is a number from your racing career that comes to mind? And just instantly, I just remembered the lap time I achieved when I qualified on the front row for Williams back in 2021.
Oh, yeah.
Which,
I remember this.
yeah, I just remember, 2 minutes, 0.08. And this was a huge moment in my career because, again, I was still in a team that we were right at the back of the grid. We just finished last in the championship 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. This was back in Belgium, back to the same circuit as the 1.5 kilos. And we were having an amazing session. It was a wet session, really difficult conditions to drive. And we somehow hustled the car through into Q3, the last part of qualifying, which already for us, we were celebrating. It was a huge achievement. Like, wow, we're in the top 10 here. We've only been, I don't think we'd been there for 4 years as a team in the final part of qualifying. So that was a huge deal for us. And I remember at the start of this session, it was raining a huge amount. There was a big crash through a rouge, the third corner, and the session got delayed for about 45 minutes while the water levels reduced, while they cleaned the debris and sorted the barriers. And we had 1 lap to determine qualifying. And I remember I had a good feeling. Like, it was going back to this flow state. I just said, if I can nail this first corner and get round it, I took a really tight line. I think we can have a good session, maybe qualify 8th or 7th. And I got around the first corner and nailed it. And I came up to a rouge where there was this huge crash before, and I was like, well, I'm going to go as close to flat out here as possible. And I remember sliding through the corner and crossing the line, and I saw my name go to the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, okay. But I was one of the first to complete the lap. Mm-hmm. So I knew Lewis was about 5 seconds behind me completing his lap. So I was waiting for him to go a second ahead. And I see Hamilton P2 behind me, and then Bottas P3, Sebastian Vettel somewhere. And it was just all these names were coming behind. Unfortunately, Verstappen on his last lap, he was the last car to complete, just pipped me to pole position, but still qualifying on the front row for a team that we'd been in last place for so long. That was just so unexpected. And this was the week of when I found out that I'd been promoted to Mercedes. And that just felt such an important moment as sort of proof, like, you've signed the right guy.
This was unbelievable. I remember this vividly. Yeah. This was unbelievable. Everyone was shell-shocked by it. It was incredible, George. But how much more special did it feel because of the fact that it was at Williams? You've obviously gone on to get the race wins and to achieve so much more. But looking back, is that still something that is
for sure
deeply special?
That accomplishment felt like if I were to win a race today, lapping the whole field, it's kind of how it felt, because that was so huge for us. It was just like, how on earth have we qualified in this position? And that was probably, I wouldn't say, let's say, my greatest achievement, but in terms of probably my greatest ever performance, I would say was that lap was pretty special.
I knew you were going to bring it, first of all. The way you told that story, I was in the car with you. The joy on your face.
Yeah.
Do you often remind yourself of all of these moments, these milestones? I mean, you just looked like you were having so much fun explaining that to us.
Yeah, I
mean, and we felt it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying this chat because you remember the good moments, you remember the heartbreaks, you remember what you've been through. And sometimes you don't have these opportunities to reflect on what you have achieved to this moment and where you've come from and that journey of your career. And, these are all very special moments for all different reasons. And that was a huge moment that I will, I'll probably remember that lap for probably the rest of my life. I can remember every single corner now, how I took that lap. And yeah, that was very special.
Do you ever remind yourself of just these great moments you had before races? Like just to get your mind
Get yourself hyped.
You know, yeah, like that's what we do, you know.
Yeah.
Run through these great plays we've made. Do you just run through great decisions you've made before a race?
I don't. Maybe I should. Maybe I should.
Listen, I'll send it's not gonna cost you much, man. I'm not
You're good.
expensive.
Okay, all right. I need some of your advice. No, but I think what is a common theme is being in like this flow state and driving instinctively. As I said, that lap, 2 minutes, 0.08, the lap I did before, because the track was much drier, was about 6 seconds faster. So we will have one lap to complete with the track being 6 seconds slower than it was on the lap before because it rained so much. So you can't prepare for a moment like that because the size of the pitch is moving, everything is changing, the conditions are changing. So you can only drive on instincts. And I think this is always a great reminder for myself, like you've got to put the work in to learn and to evolve. But when it comes to the moment of performing, you've just got to let the instincts take over.
You talk about evolving. I've known you for a few years now within the sport, and I think it's so noticeable how much you've grown as a driver and as a person. Are you proud of where you're at now? Like, how do you look at yourself now? If you compare yourself to the 10-year-old that took on 63.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of proud of every moment, to be honest. You look back on some times in your life and maybe a bit embarrassed for certain reasons or wish you didn't do certain things.
We all are, don't worry.
Yeah,
we all have that about ourselves.
But yeah, I'm really proud of the journey and where I'm at and where I'm heading.
Yeah.
And just keep on going, keep on climbing this ladder.
George, you brought life to these numbers. They were over here. No one knew what they meant. You told stories. You brought us in those moments. I felt like I've been on this journey with you as a fan. How do you feel now that you've completed this and we built this pyramid?
Yes, put me in a good mood. Yeah. You made my day. So
Listen!
That's what we like to hear.
That's what we're here for. Look at us. That's what's up, man. You put us in a good mood. Your career has put a lot of people in a good mood.
Appreciate it.
Keep doing what you do. Keep being a leader.
Thank you.
Man, you got a lot of wisdom.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was fantastic.
I absolutely loved that. I mean, I have the pleasure of interviewing the drivers frequently. A lot of the race weekends that I'm at, I'm interviewing them out on stage or we're in the media pen. But this was a completely different feel, right? We weren't focusing on what has just happened out on track. It was a look back at such an interesting career, and as we saw, a bit of a roller coaster. Some of these moments, almost freak accidents happening all in one, but he picked himself back up and...
So many life lessons.
Yeah.
Like you can learn so much from people when they have to overcome adversity. How do they manage it? What's their mentality? The tools that you can take away that are necessary to have success in your own life. He gave us all of that. And it's just amazing when you put a person's life in front of them in numbers like this. It just made so much sense. And he took us on this journey. That's what sports is about. That's what relationships are about. That's what life's about.
And Formula One is such a numbers sport, right? As he was saying, when he's driving around the track, he's calculating in his head, we've got 10 laps left, he's doing this speed, that means he's going to catch me then. But seeing numbers like this, where it's actually just telling a story, it's not just the black and white, this is the delta, this is the time. It's actually, there's a whole story behind this and the meaning of something like this, where, if you just see that number, that's not his greatest performance on paper. But he's saying that's the one that's actually really going to stick with him.
It makes sense with him that he picked the most difficult number to kind of break down.
Yeah, of course.
Because like you're saying, it's so analytical, it's so numbers driven, but the numbers tell a story. And when you're behind that wheel, you're racing, you're trying to perform, those numbers are dictating exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And you have to be locked into them to perform at a high level, which he does. I love how he broke down that ladder, because the first thing I thought is, man, you've climbed. You're at the tippy top of this ladder. That's a hard place to be, and he's so comfortable in where he is and what he's doing. You love to see that.
I really loved it. It's the shame the time was clicking.
I know, it's going too fast. Do you think his younger self will be really proud.
Yeah.
I do too.
How can you not?
I know, really. Just come on.
Really proud, but still really hungry.
That's,
You can tell.
now there is the secret to success.
It's a Toto Wolf watch. It can sustain 20,000 G. You know, I have quite this emotional outburst. So this what you can.
They made it for you.
They made it for me. First of all, it should have been 40, but then Niki Lauda chipped in last minute and said, I want 10.
What was the role that Nikki played for you?
You become an adult the moment you realize you're alone. We realized that we weren't alone anymore.
When you look back on 15-year-old Toto, how do you reflect on that period?
Absolute horror. It's a traumatizing year for me. A year that I don't wish to have anyone to have.